Good morning. Today is May the 6th, 2025. It's about 9:35 a.m. on the East Coast. And for the record, this is Yahweh Elohim, YHWH. So, a couple of things. I'm actually thinking about using my X account. I created the Twitter account by accident, actually, one time. I was trying to read a news article and it linked over to Twitter, and kind of in a rush, I guess, I hit like continue as or whatever, so it like automatically built out this profile, but I have yet to use it. I don't even really know how to use it yet. So, but considering I'm taking some tips from the angels on kind of how to better interact throughout the day, especially when I'm working with so many leaders from around the world, and I definitely want to try to kind of come out of the hidden place and be a little bit more interactive in terms of that. My biggest concern with doing something like that is I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I don't want anyone to get accidentally hurt, harmed, or worse for being disrespectful, because I understand that humans like to essentially verbally attack one another, and they like to push around opinions. That's not the way I interact with humanity. So just kind of a heads up and a warning. If I do go down that road, I welcome any and all people, right, to follow, keep updates and stuff like that, but I'm feeling that account is going to be primarily used for updates like the one I'm going to use, right? I work again through many different nouns, people, places, and things to accomplish my will. It's no surprise that part of the deal for President Trump is, saving him was he's going to work for heaven, right? And a part of that working for heaven is he's also working off. So just like if someone got in trouble when they have probation, right, and they do community service to kind of like work off their crime. Some people enter into a pre-covenant with me. Usually it's in situations that their life is spared, and then basically they are working directly for me, the King, and the kingdom through the power of the will, power of the Holy Spirit, which is my spirit. And anyway, so they're working it off, right? So kind of President Trump, part of that deal is, he's going to stand firm, making policies that are going to be beneficial for not only the Union, America, but good for Israel, and ultimately good for me, the God of both America and Israel. So Trump is doing well. Very proud of him. Try and keep it in the lines. But that wasn't actually my main point right now. I put a little note out on the YouTube, briefly touching on, Europe was good partners, right, back in World War II. And then, of course, time in between can change those dynamics. And so right now, even though America and the European Union, right, are in a bit of a rough spot, that's only a rough spot in terms of the outcome. If they are relying on money they're making off of tariffs, essentially us, the United States, paying them to take our goods, that isn't a commodity. So that's not something that benefits the United States. It's not something that we need as a country. So it is actually not in America's best interest. What would be in the best interest of the Union is for Europe to genuinely have something, right? A commodity, a resource, a mineral. Now, I know the way that the UK and Europe as a whole is designed is not necessarily heavy into mining or really heavy into anything, right? You guys are also a service type of situation, and that needs to change because you need to be able to bring something to the table with the United States to say, hey, I have this good that you need, and likewise, we have a good you need. It's mutually beneficial. Tariff doesn't play a factor into those situations because that's a good deal, right? So it would be like, if I was going to trade my e-bike, right, for something more beneficial to me that I would use more than my e-bike. and then the person who can, give me a comparable trade. Well, that's what I mean, right? We don't need to have the money stacked in with those deals if it's a good trade both ways. So that's where 0% tariff is the goal. But if the other party doesn't have a good, and they're creating their entire political platform based on making money off of a mother country like the United States, right? A rich country like America, obviously attracts all types of peoples, countries, and governments. But we're not going to do that at the expense of us. We're not going to pay other countries just for them to come into our fold. That's ridiculous. So, again, European Union, you guys come to the table with a 0% tariff and offer us some different trade. Like, what could we really use, and what do you have a lot of? Quite frankly, there are certain types of wood. I know that might sound weird, but there are certain types of wood, hardwoods, that are grown in the UK, much more so than America. And I believe you guys have, by at large, more of those than we do. So I'm saying, just as an example, I'm not saying we need to go into the hardwood business. All I'm saying is you can use natural resources that you already have, put in that legwork, and then that could be a commodity, right? Because Russia doesn't have really anything other than oil and gas, and it's hell of expensive to run those pipelines. And again, if any sign of war happens, those pipelines are the first to go. So then Europe is essentially out of the power business. They're not going to get any. So a big import, right, instead of you're going to China or even going through Russia or whatever, you could definitely be making deals with the United States to import our oil. Because if we're going to be fracking, that's fine with me, as long as it's clean and as long as it's done properly and safely, not bureaucratic red tape, again, that, if a miner gets a hangnail, that we're going to throw a hissy fit. No, but making sense. Like, let's not destroy ecosystems for my animals. Every animal on this planet is my animal, directly created by me. And we need to make sure that we're being responsible and keeping an eye out for them, right? So that was one part. But the next part is Secretary Hegseth. Good job. From one warfighter to another. I think that is an awesome approach, because nobody is going to have the ears, of our military personnel. Nobody's going to have the ear better than an ex-military personnel. So I like that approach. I like Hegseth in general. I think he is definitely going to bring in the warrior ethos, as him and Trump kind of dubbed that. And, it's no surprise I have a soft spot for my warriors. Obviously, the warriors that are playing for the right side. And, America is playing for the right side, even though it sometimes in the past has not really felt like that. But the spirit behind all that is genuinely. But understand that, there is a blessing that I give to all the warriors. They have a very difficult job to do, and I don't want them restrained by any type of spiritual detachment that they feel that their profession could bring. Because as long as you are being a shepherd, right, and a shepherd can sometimes hold a rod or a staff or, an M16. And so with that being said, war at the moment is unfortunately still happening in the domain. And so long as there are genuinely evil agents and governments that behind those government names and titles, there are demonic entities that are pulling the strings. Those are ones that I am personally trying to go after and soften these locations for a further expedition with a more hardtack approach with the military units from America. And Israel is a little bit separate in their situation. But point was, all the warriors, Israel and America, have my blessing. Stay moral. I'm not giving a license to kill by any means, but right from wrong, and prime target versus non-prime targets, and it should be based on skills, and it should be based on a no-nonsense military readiness and lethality that is so fearsome that in itself will deter our enemies. And that's it. And I've said this before in different videos, but anytime someone is going to enter into the armed forces, I know from experience a lot of times it attracts all types of people and backgrounds and all types of different reasons for entering it, but all those reasons die at the door. And whoever you were before the military in a way dies at the door, because the military requires a sense of obedience. That obedience is to save the lives of your brothers, the one to the left and the one to the right. That ability to unlearn and then relearn the things that are going to be pertinent to your job are highly, highly ranked in the military. We do not need to be bogged down by idealizations of gender. There is male, there is female. That is it. And if that is a confusing or an emotional person, or is that's an emotional or mental thing for an individual, then you don't belong in the military. If you have strong political ideations that essentially go against your primary purpose of being a guardian of the Union, of being a warrior for American citizens, that is the men, the women, and the children that are citizens of the Union, America, a warrior's job is to defend the country and the citizens in it. It is not to debate gender. It is not to debate that this person should get a promotion over that person because of tenure or time or whose daddy is who. It don't matter. None of that needs to matter in the military. What matters, and I like how Secretary Hegseth noted that when you put on that rucksack and you are going out in the middle of the Dust Bowl at 110 degrees and you're taking enemy fire, and I look to my right and I look to my left, I want to feel assured that the people to my left and to my right are as capable as I am or more. And I myself should be as capable or more. And that mentality is the mentality of a true military man, right? A good soldier. And I bless my good soldiers, and unfortunately some of them have very short lives. And they, in my direct intervention, after they perish, I take good care of my soldiers. No soldiers that fight for good causes are ever wasted, and rarely are they ever put back down into a domain cycle. On that same note, those that fight for wickedness, Hamas, there is no warrior blessing. Hezbollah, there is no warrior blessing. You are the enemy. Your ideals are the ideals of my adversary, who is called Satan. And I do not entertain, nor do I care about the pleas or the cries for those that do harm to women, to children, and to destroy and to kill. Biasedly, unbiasedly, it doesn't matter. That is the difference between the American and Israeli warfighters that are trying to genuinely rid the world of evil, bring evil completely out of the equation. Because guess what? This is only step one. When evil is gone and it is essentially snuffed out, the next step is going to be one of my greatest miracles for the human race. I'm not going to go too deep on this, but as a species, it is natural for your species to grow into your second planet. Now, Mars will be that second planet. Elon Musk paired up with Trump, with Elon's mission and Trump's mission. It is not happen chance. This is all divinely stitched in by me, and these are for good reasons. But again, I am not going to get that show going until we can close out the chapter on evil. Because before I can start building an atmosphere on Mars, which is what I'll do, I'll begin putting in ozone, I'll begin adding elements, and then it's going to start kicking it up. And we will begin building that ozone, start getting oxygen, and then there's some things that I do as God that are actually going to manifest the water back into Mars. There's some that's underground, but if you think of if I put my coffee mug right in the freezer for a few hours and then I pulled it out, and I live in Florida, so it's like really humid all the time. So you pull out the coffee cup out of the freezer, and in Florida, right, it'd be starting to sweat. All that condensation would just start pouring off that cup. Well, the same thing I'll be doing with Mars, but we can't do that if we're still stuck on chapter 1. So the lethality of American and Israeli military, the sophistication of the weaponry, because understand that the monstrosities that are developed for war, I do not like them, but for right now, they are necessary, is what I'm saying. So it is a temporary thing to achieve a greater good. And once the greater good is achieved, then we will be shifting gears again. And this is down the road, but we will be shifting gears again to much bigger ideals. And the whole trick is, right, even in the military, right, if you got a platoon and everybody's hanging out and everybody's bored, nobody has a job or has a purpose for months on end, guess what happens? Every time, without skipping a beat, they begin to fight. When you have human beings on a planet and they're growing and growing and growing, the inevitable is they're going to fight. That's what's happening right now, is people of Earth are fighting over resources. You're fighting over advantages here, advantages there, land masses here. Well, that's what I mean. A part of your society is to become a multi-planetary species, just as the predecessors did before your species. And once you've established that, I'm the same God, so just putting it out there, when you get to Mars, there is not a different deity that you're going to be dealing with. You're still dealing with me. And I will also be with those that are going to be going on mission to Mars. I will be with you in spirit. I will have angels that are going to be on the lookout for you. We're going to try to help you in these missions, not sabotage you. So I just want everybody to know that. I don't want people to be fearful of space exploration, because that is, again, going to be something that humanity needs. But long story short, I'm happy with a lot of things. Even not that I'm a big NFL fan. Asher is, she was a fan of the Chiefs. But that being said, I have nothing against the NFL, its players, or even its owners, or Roger Goodell. Like, all those people are neutral to me. All I ask is, if you're going to entertain me in any way, right, or want my blessing, please don't call me Jesus. That's all I'm asking, And I don't even want to pick apart, right, names, titles, and all this. I just want to keep it at something neutral that is at the minimum not going to push me out, right? I don't want to come into something with good intentions and then just be completely pissed off, right? Because it feels like it's just a constant, like, in your face, in my face, you know what I mean? And it's like, I would love to see that change coming up for the NFL and frankly in America, because America, you're not Rome, right? Israel, you're not Rome. And I will deal with Rome myself. And as people, if you understand where I'm coming from, who I am, and all these things, then you'll know, like, that is genuinely a massive issue. The whole Jesus cult thing is a massive issue. And if America is going to be, standing, side by side with Israel, then we need to come together as one. Like, one people under God, under Elohim, under Yahweh, Elohim, YHWH. That is me. And I don't ask for an office. I don't ask for anything. But I do and will work my will one way or the other. So let's try to keep that. No. So let's try to keep that in the right lane. And then I'll kind of explore the Twitter X thing. I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm a little and I'm never fearful of anything, but I'm hesitant because, again, I don't want to do something and then people that are still unknown or unlearned or oblivious to try and jump in there and put their 2 cents in and then offend me, and next thing you know, like, this entire person's life is entirely wrecked, disheveled, and I mean, it causes a lot of issues when people do that. And, you know, to be honest, and that's just one end, because if you could put on your glasses and see me as I truly am, as I sit here in front of you, then you would also see the angels that are around me at all times. It would be a lot more intimidating than just little old me. So that's what I mean, is even if I don't even catch, right, someone being snarky or this and that and the other, my angels do. And the one way to upset an angel is to mess with me. Because on earth, I'm considered like the favorite son, but in heaven, I'm considered the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, right? So I'm saying, I'm the captain of the angels, both heaven and earth. What I mean is, don't mess with me. I don't like it. The angels won't like it, and it never, ever, ever ends well for those who mess with me or my family. So if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all, right? If you don't like whatever, right? If you're anti-God, if you're whatever, then just stay away, right? If you're a pagan, you have other beliefs, that's fine, right? Go over there and do your thing. But those types of people are not going to really be around for any long period of time, because it's unsustainable is what I'm saying, right? It's unsustainable. I would not, if I owned a dog shelter and I had 1,000 dogs, I'm not going to be able to keep the 200 dogs that have diseases and uncurable sickness. I'm not going to just, out of the kindness of my heart, keep those 200 in with my 1,000, because then they could infect my 1,000. So I'll slowly be closing that gap and getting them people out. That way, my people, right? Good people, righteous people, they obey the 10 Commandments, law-abiding citizens, they have common sense, they have upright standards, they know their own gender, they work a purpose for themselves, their families, but also for me and for heaven, right? So these people are also balanced, the ones we want to keep, kind of to ride the heels of Trump, right? We want the good people in and the bad people out, because it has nothing to do with the color of your skin or the gender or who you are. It depends on your skills, right? It don't matter if you're Asian, if you're Indian, if you're black, if you're white, if you're, Asian. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is what's between your ears and what's in your heart. Are you gonna, blend into American society? Are you going to, support the Constitution? Are you gonna uphold, the laws and the standards that are given to you by the Union, which also bipartisanly is given to them by me, God, Elohim? That's what I mean. So it's a bit of a system, but America and Israel is not and will not continue to abide by foreign gods, foreign laws. That's not what America is. It's not what America is ever supposed to be. Okay? You are Christians because you have a Christian deity. That Christian deity happens to be the same deity of the Jewish people. So Christians, by extension, are like the Jewish people. I, as Yahweh, am allotted the people. The Christians and the Jews are my people. And Jerusalem, Israel, the land, is also my land. And bipartisan, I'm not going to get complicated, the founding of America is also done by the hands of me, and then given to men to work the purpose for the time now, right? If we didn't have those souls founding Jamestown, how rough of a patch that was, and then everything, the shit show with the Indians, right? That totally went downhill. What I mean is, I can start a chain of events, but because of free will, those chain of events can oftentimes take tons of different turns. But at the end of the day, we still ended up with America. We still ended up with all the things that you have that we needed now in this time period to be able to conclude what we got to conclude, eradicate evil. I'm saying we are well on our way. So if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you will be able to see the progress we're making, right? If you're stuck in dogma or you're sniffing up Pope skirts, then you're missing the whole show. And in which case, you're not going to be around to see much more as we progress. Because honestly, what excites me is progress. What excites me is success. What excites me is the birth of new things for pious reasons. And I want to give humanity all things, and there is so much more that I can give you guys. But like I would tell the kids, we are not going to go to this, arcade until these rooms are clean. Humanity, we are not going to bring in New Earth State until we've taken care of evil, put it in a final checkmate, and start day by day. Day by day, we should have the numbers of righteous babies being born, the number of evil babies being lessened. We should have the number of pious citizens waking up and smelling the roses about me, about their country, getting in line with all these things, right? Mainly me. But then the evil stuff should start going down. And then we'll begin to see this big separation. And I promise you, you will start to see things you've never dreamed of, right? And then equality is naturally going to start taking root in a much stronger way. And then everyone's going to be better for it, I promise. But we'll keep it short today. I got some things to do. So have a good Tuesday, and we'll catch up with you another one.